Another exception with the raw sakina with a kasra, with a letter with a kasra before it, is if after it there's a thick letter with a fatha on it. The thick letters are khusu dhaqtin qid, and there's a fatha on it. So normally speaking, the raw sakina with a letter that has a kasra before it, you pronounce it thin. But because after it you have a thick letter that has a fatha on it, khusu dhaqtin qid, the thick letters with a fatha on it, then you pronounce it thick instead. That's the rule for it. And in the Quran, there's only 5 places where that occurs, where you have the raw sakina with a kasra before it, which normally speaking would be thin, but because there's a thick letter after it with a fatha, you pronounce it thick. And like example, kirtos. Normally speaking, you have a raw sakina with a kasra before it would be thin, but because the ta with the fatha is after it, you pronounce it thick. Kirtos, that's the first one. And then irsad, this is a hamzatul qata'. So the raw sakina with the kasra before it, normally speaking, to be thin, but because there's a thick letter sad with a fatha on it, you pronounce it thick. And likewise, firqatin, normally speaking, it would be thin, but because there's a thick letter qaf with a fatha, you pronounce it thick. Firqatin. And Surah An-Naba, mirsad. The raw sakina is here, and there's a thick letter with a fatha on it, so it'll be thick, not thin as a normal rule, because there's a kasra before it. And Surah Al-Fajr, likewise the same word, mirsad, over here, the raw sakina with a thick letter. Sad is a thick letter with a fatha, so you pronounce it thick. Even though there's a letter with a kasra before it, which would normally make the raw thin. But all these cases here, you pronounce it thick, because there's a thick letter after it with a fatha on it, and that's the rule. That's another exception to the rule for the raw. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, and may peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.